You know, in coverage of previous elections, congressional and presidential, it seems as if Social Security has sometimes been a hot button issue, but I'm curious about the different way that Social Security seems to be playing out this time around, which is not to say nothing is going on, because there are some things going on, and I think maybe they deserve some additional attention. So here to help us with all of that is Linda Benesch, Communications Director of Social Security Works. I haven't talked to her for a while, and I look forward to it. She's here in studio, which is even better. So, Linda, thanks for coming back on the program.
Thanks so much for having me on, Richard.
Oh, always a pleasure. And let's talk about Campaign 2020 first, because, we had the debates this week, the second round of debates. That's gotten a lot of attention. It's still on everybody's mind a little bit. So really, help me out, but I'm not even sure there was one question about Social Security. Was there?
No, there were no questions about Social Security. There were a few very weird mentions, like the time that our friend John Delaney said that because we didn't get rid of pensions when we created Social Security, we should keep private insurance under Medicare for All, that's a whole nother conversation, because he really doesn't know a lot about history or much else. But no questions on Social Security.
Yeah, I mean, we could get off into a whole issue about that. But so I remember last time around, in 2016, Social Security was more of a topic. Interestingly, I think more on the Republican side, because you had all the Republicans but one saying, you had 16 candidates at one point, I think. All the Republican presidential candidates but one said that we needed to cut Social Security, if my memory is correct. But the one that didn't say that is president now.
Yeah, no, that's very true. And then even on the Democratic side, it was a bit of a topic, because we really had to work with a bunch of our allies to push Hillary Clinton to move to say that she wouldn't cut Social Security and that she would actually expand it. And Bernie Sanders' campaign, as well as the work of grassroots activists, really played a huge role there. And so on the Democratic side, to an extent, I think we're sort of victims of our own success, in the sense of that the Democratic Party is united around Social Security, especially around not cutting benefits, and to a large extent around expanding them. And as we've seen with these debates, the moderators are really just looking to make the candidates fight each other.
Right,
for
exactly.
entertainment. And so they're not going to ask about something where everyone on stage is just going to agree.
Although that would be good for the Democratic Party, of course, but they don't care what's good for... Right, exactly. Or I guess it was NBC last time. But so we've got this sort of increasing unanimity, and people forget that there was talk about, in one of his proposed budgets, President Obama introduced a sort of slow acting benefit cut by proposing the chained CPI, which is a complex way of reducing Social Security benefits over time. And the deficit commission he appointed looked at ways to potentially cut Social Security. So people don't understand, I think, what a big victory it is that that's off the table.
Right, and we had been thinking, the activist community, that there might be Social Security in the Democratic primary because of Joe Biden. But Joe Biden actually just recently released a plan to not cut Social Security, and specifically ruling out means testing, which is something that he's kind of flirted with in the past, and that includes expansions to Social Security benefits. And so even though we definitely have to keep a very close eye on him, right, and I'm not saying that his new position is necessarily to be trusted, it's still really striking that even the high-polling candidate, who's the farthest to the right, is still on expand, don't cut Social Security benefits.
Is there, do you know, I don't know if you track this, Linda Benesch, but is there anybody on the Democratic presidential side who hasn't come out for some form of increasing Social Security benefits?
All of them who have a record on it have come out for increasing some form of Social Security benefits. So that's the ones who are in Congress or have been in the past. Now, with some of these governors and mayors, they just don't have as much of a track record. But AARP did recently hold forums with almost all the candidates, in which they didn't exactly ask the right questions, but they did have one about Social Security, where all the candidates came out for either scrapping or lifting the cap on Social Security contributions. And some of them talked about expanding benefits. And now one who I think kind of notably did not is Pete Buttigieg.
You know, I was going to ask about him because I, I feel this is just an outside opinion, but I feel like you got to watch that guy. So I was going to ask whether. So what did he say that caught your ear?
So Buttigieg supports lifting the cap. He said that he doesn't support cuts and that he really thinks that the argument that you somehow need to cut benefits, right, is cynical, which he's completely right on that. But then he also said we should have portable private retirement savings accounts, which is an absurd position, right? Because you're just recreating what Social Security already does, except worse, and so that Wall Street gets a cut of the money.
Okay, I think that's a very good way to put it. And just as a kind of quick summary for anybody who doesn't know this, of course, lifting the cap means the payroll tax cap, it's indexed to inflation, but people only pay the Social Security tax up to, what is it now, about $119,000, $124,000?
A little higher now, like 120 something, yeah.
And after that, if you're Jeff Bezos, you've paid it in the first probably 40 seconds of the year. You're done for the year. Everything is, so lifting the cap means that you would pay that percentage on all your income, not just the income that you make up to that point. So millionaires and billionaires would pay their fair share, to use that language. So that's a good idea. So Buttigieg is for that. But so that's sort of, if you accept the use of the word, it's kind of neoliberal. It's kind of, it's a solution that brings the private sector into it when Social Security is already working fine.
Right. We don't need some new technocratic pledge. We can just increase Social Security benefits. It's much simpler. It's more equitable, right? It's easier. And so, yeah, we should be keeping our eye on Buttigieg. And not all of them who have endorsed expansion are talking about it as much as they should. The ones who mentioned it in the AARP forums were Bernie, Warren, Klobuchar, or no, not Klobuchar, sorry, Gillibrand, Booker, and Beto. So,
all right. Well,
yeah, surprised by that last one.
Yeah,
Gotta give him credit.
Although I have a feeling Beto's not going to be around forever, but obviously politics can be full of surprises, but good for him on that. So here's what I don't get, and we've had you on, we've had other people from Social Security Works, we have John Bauman who runs the Social Security Works PAC. It's such good politics to tell people that you will increase Social Security benefits. I'm surprised they're not making kind of a bigger deal about it.
Yeah, I think part of it is just there's still advised people around most of these candidates who are stuck in the past. And like their brains just really haven't kind of completely wrapped around this change in the conversation around Social Security yet. They haven't caught up. And so that's a big part of the work that we need to be doing as advocates around this election.
Yeah, it's almost as if the political class and the media have to be educated more than the people on, or maybe even the politicians on this one.
Yes, especially the media and especially the elite cable news media. And like, honestly, I was kind of happy that there wasn't a question around Social Security in the debates, because based on the track records of the people who were moderating, it would have been a terrible one. It would have been, how much do you want to cut Social Security since, you know, it's in crisis, et cetera, which isn't true. Instead of the question that the candidate should be asked, which is, how would you expand Social Security?
Or the infamous question from 2012 from ABC's Martha Raddatz, everybody knows Social Security is going broke. Is Social Security going broke? Let's just get that off.
Social Security is not going broke. It can pay full benefits through 2034 and about 80% of benefits through that if we do nothing. But if we make the wealthy pay in at the same rate as the rest of us, we can protect and expand benefits.
So, okay, good. Now, let's talk about expanding benefits. What might that look like? I know there are different proposals out there. What might how might that change people's lives? What kind of money are we talking about? What kind of proposals are out there?
So there's, as you said, several proposals, but the one that has the most traction at the moment is the Social Security 2100 Act. That's sponsored by Representative John Larson, who's the chair of the Social Security Subcommittee in the House, and it's co-sponsored by 210 Democrats. That's nearly 90% of all the Democrats in the House, and really, it's across the ideological spectrum, right? You've got Connor Lamb, who got elected in rural Pennsylvania, right, all the way to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And this bill, it would increase benefits for everyone. It would fix the cost of living adjustments every year so that they reflect the real expenses that beneficiaries are facing, especially healthcare. And it would increase the special minimum benefit to 125% of the poverty level. So, you know, for seniors, people with disabilities, right, children, since Social Security survivors benefits, they're not talked about, but they're important too. For all those people, right, it means that they're less likely to have to choose between putting groceries on the table or buying their medications.
So it would be designed so that you can't be you can't be technically anyway impoverished if you're getting Social Security, right? It guarantees the benefits are higher than that. So, and although I think we worry too much in this country about, in our politics about paying for things, it's actually, this one is paid for, right?
Yeah, it's fully paid for, and partly that's because it does phase out that cap, requires millionaires and billionaires to pay the same rate as the rest of us. And it also includes a gradual rate in the payroll contribution, a gradual increase in the payroll contribution rate from 6.2% to 7.4%. And that's phased in very gradually over the course of 24 years. And what it amounts to is an annual increase of just 50 cents a week for a worker earning $50,000. But Republicans are demagoguing about that like crazy.
Well, and you know, what's interesting about that is that, now it's been a while, but I remember the National Academy of Social Insurance did a survey a while back, and people overwhelmingly were willing to pay the money. They polled people on whether they'd be willing to pay a few cents more a week out of their paycheck in order to have better Social Security, and it was extremely popular. So let me ask you this. So John Larson's proposal has got, what did you say, 209
210, yeah.
210. So that's 90% of the Democratic caucus. You almost have enough people already to pass it, don't you? I mean, how many votes? There are 435 members of Congress, so to pass, you've got to get 218. So you only really need 8 more votes. How many Democrats are going to say no when they might go down as the Democrats who deprive people of better Social Security benefits?
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And you were talking earlier about Trump. You know, he did win his primary by saying he wouldn't cut benefits. So John Larson, he thinks if you tell Trump, you know, we passed this bill out of the House, right? Like, are you really going to say no? I mean, we'll see about that, but he certainly wants to try to make this a law.
See, if I was a Democratic political advisor, I'd say pass this bill now, because if Mitch McConnell blocks it or Donald Trump blocks it, man, that's good politics for you. And if they don't block it, it's good for the public. So what's the next with this? Is it going to get a hearing? Is it going to get a vote? I mean, I know there are complicated rules around this in the House of Representatives about which bills get talked about, which bills get voted on. Do we know yet?
So the plan right now is for it to get a markup this fall, and then a vote out of committee first, and then in the House not long after that.
And okay, well, that sounds good. That sounds really good. And it's been so long since I've been able to say about anything in Congress. That sounds good. It's a disorienting feeling. Before we go, is there anything else people should know about in terms of the politics of Social Security, what's going on right now?
Just on this 2100 Act, the Republicans are really pushing these talking points hard, which aren't true, right? But they're kind of manipulating the numbers to make the payroll contribution increase sound much, much bigger than it actually is. And they're trying to scare especially young people, but all people, and especially some of them are moderate Democrats, as they do, right? Like, they're starting to get a little scared. And so your House members really need to hear from you. So I would encourage your listeners to call them and say, don't be scared of the Republican lies, support the Social Security 2100 Act.
All right, good. And I may have to sit down at my own keyboard and look at what the games they're playing with numbers, because I love to bust people on playing games with numbers. So, well,
Very good at it.
What's that?
And you're very good at it.
Well, thank you. You're not required as a guest on this program to compliment me, but I am going to compliment you and say you're doing great work, and I really appreciate it. So, Linda Benesch, Communications Director for Social Security Works. I better get that name right. Thanks, as always, for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.